Well, hi, everybody. Once again, welcome back. I'm Paul M. Newberger, host of YG One-on-One right here on YG TV. It's wonderful to have you join us today. We're here once again with my friend Tim Stewart, Tim of DeWitt LLP, and he's Mr. ESOP, ladies and gentlemen, and he's here once again to continue this conversation and educate us on the importance of this process to most organizations. Tim, wonderful to have you back in the hot seat, my man.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So ready to dive into our fourth segment on ESOPs?
Yes.
Something tells me you're just ready to talk about ESOPs from the moment you wake out of bed in the morning.
Something tells me you've got some great questions to ask.
I always have great questions to ask, and that's a wonderful segue, my friend. And no, we didn't rehearse this, folks. So what I'd like to do today is just really spend some time talking about the process of selling a business to an ESOP, how that process works, getting a little bit more granular if we can. I think that's the logical next step. So if we can do a step-by-step approach, that would be great. Would you be able to outline this process for us, kind sir?
Would be happy to, absolutely. So let's start, actually, the first step normally is a conversation with someone like me who can do a basic one-on-one Q&A, for a business owner, to outline and hit the high points without getting too deep on things like business value and what this would look from a financial standpoint. But that is usually the first step, but that is something I really enjoy doing and do a lot of. But the next step is where I think things really begin, which is called a feasibility study. Now, we do not, as attorneys, do feasibility studies. We refer people to qualified individuals that do them. And what is a feasibility study? Basically, if you're selling a business, one of the things you want to know is, okay, if I'm going to do an ESOP, what's my likely business value going to be? What's the purchase price going to be? So a feasibility study will take a business owner's the company's financial data, and model out, okay, we think based on the last 3 years of your financial data, this is likely going to be the range of your purchase price. This is what it's going to look like for you after taxes. They can go and say, well, if you did a minority transaction, like 25% or 49%, it would look like this. If you did a majority, 100% transaction, it would look like this. So they can actually go through and give a business owner an idea, okay, I like the concept of an ESOP, and now I have an idea of what my likely value is going to be. I might be ready to take the next step after that.
So just to confirm and make sure that we're on the same page, are you, as the ESOP attorney, normally involved in this feasibility study?
Normally not, and we're not, as we tell people, financial advisors, nor are we valuation specialists. So we shy away from that part, but I do kind of look at myself as somewhat of a gatekeeper to that next step, which is listening to a business owner's thoughts and goals. I can often tell, is this going to be a good fit from an ESOP from the perspective of will it meet his or her goals? Not the financial goals, but the other sorts of goals like legacy and loyalty, as an example. If they say those two words, then I know, okay, there's a good chance that an ESOP is going to be a good fit here.
So far, this all sounds understandable. Now, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, as you well know, Mr. Stewart, but I think I'm hanging with you here.
Okay, good.
So let me just see if I understand this, okay? So I understand who the seller is in this scenario. Now, the seller in this scenario, that's the business owner, right?
You got it.
Okay, awesome. But what I hate to admit this on TV, but what I'm really kind of struggling with is I need some clarity on who the buyer is. Can you shed some light on that for me, please?
Yes, so good question, and the buyer actually is the ESOP trustee, and natural question that is, what ESOP trustee? I don't have an ESOP yet, so how can there be a trustee? So if you go through a feasibility study, step one, and you like the look of the value and you like everything you hear there, the next step in the process normally would be, I got to go find an ESOP trustee. Now there's about 40 to 50 individuals and companies in the whole country only, that's a small number, that perform ESOP trustee services. And these people are experts and do this all the time. They understand how to value businesses and how to go through and meet the fiduciary standards that are required for ESOP trustees. So this is just someone that the business owner would interview and hire to sit across from them and negotiate purchase price, terms, reps and warranties, all these things that go into the purchase of a business, you actually, as the selling shareholder, hire someone to sit across the table and bargain from you. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but that's the way it works.
So who else is on the other side of the table with said ESOP trustee?
That ESOP trustee is not alone on that side of the table. So they're going to have a financial advisor, also known generally as a valuation firm. So the trustee and the valuation firm are going to dig in and figure out, okay, what do we think this company is worth from a fair market value perspective. They're also going to have, guess what, lawyers on their side. There's lawyers sort of sprinkled throughout ESOP transactions is what you'll find out. That's a great thing. That's not a bad thing, Paul. That's a good thing.
I was confused for a minute.
So they'll have their legal counsel and their financial advisor. That's the side that you're going to end up negotiating with as a selling shareholder.
All right, so that's the trustee team, as I understand
correct.
it. Good, I'm hanging with you here. So with all that being said, what role do you play in all of this?
So we represent the company in the transaction, and our role is to document the transaction, right? So what happens in this process often is, I mentioned we sort of have that first conversation to talk about ESOPs at a 30,000 foot level, and then if the business owner is a good candidate, wants to go on, they could do a feasibility study, and we refer them to someone to do that. By the time they come back and negotiate a deal with the ESOP trustee, that's when we essentially re-enter and earn our keep, documenting, putting all the documents together to do an ESOP transaction. That could be as many, I think in one transaction we had something like 78 documents, right? So of various thickness. Sometimes they're a page, sometimes they're 30 pages, but there's a lot of documents involved. That's where we come in.
Well, I can tell that this is resonating with me because you got my head spinning. I got a bunch of different questions here, and I got a two-parter for you. I'm going to try to say this nice and slow so I don't throw too much stuff out at you here, but I think I'm getting this here.
Got it.
So what is the actual process of an ESOP transaction? What does that look like specifically? And then in addition to that, what happens after the feasibility study and the hiring of the ESOP trustee?
So the process actually looks a lot like any other third-party sale. Like anytime, if you're going to sell your business to an ESOP or sell to a third party or private equity firm, the actual process looks pretty similar. I should also say, we talked about the trustee side of the table. On your side of the table, you're going to want what's called a sell-side advisor. Someone to help you negotiate a good deal and the best possible purchase price. And that sell-side advisor might be an investment banking firm. It could be someone who does sell-side services on a fixed fee rate. There's all sorts of companies and individuals that do that. So, but the process itself is really the trustee team getting to know your business, what's called due diligence. That's a term that everybody in the M&A world, mergers and acquisition world, knows that term very well, because that means the other side needs to really get to know your business well. And that means reviewing a lot of data, asking a lot of questions, interviewing your people, and so that's, in an ESOP deal, is no different than if you're selling to a third party. So if you're a business owner that's looking to sell, you got to get your kind of head wrapped around this idea, like, I'm going to have to disclose an awful lot of information to whoever's buying the company, whether it's an ESOP trustee or maybe a third party.
Now, as good as all this sounds, I have to confess, and I think you know this about me already, as an entrepreneur, I'm not the world's most patient person. This process seems like this could take a long time. How long specifically does this process usually take?
We tell people that 6 months start to finish is a fairly comfortable amount of time. I will also say, though, that in an ESOP transaction, the one thing you don't have to do is find the buyer, right? You essentially, and we say this in some of our materials, an ESOP is where you create your own buyer. You're hiring an ESOP trustee, and you actually, as an employer, create the ESOP trust. Well, that's an advantage over selling to a third party, because if you're selling to a third party and trying to find, and you hire a sell-side advisor or investment banking firm to find someone to buy your company, that could take a lot longer, because you're looking for the right fit, not only from a financial perspective, but from a culture perspective, and that could take years.
Well, I got to tell you, Tim, I mean, it's one thing to know and understand ESOPs. It's another thing to make it fun. And I've learned a lot through these conversations. Today was certainly no exception. I mean, you set that bar very, very high, but every time we talk, brother, you exceed the bar. I've learned a lot. I know our viewers have as well, and I really appreciate you coming by the set today to share your wisdom with us.
We make ESOPs fun, don't we?
You sure do.
That's saying something.
Right. You can't spell fun with, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's probably not going to work. But anyway, thank you, Tim. It's wonderful to have you associated with Young Guns, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paul.